Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Peters from Ben Davis High School. I serve as chair for policy today for the 2025 ISSDA Indiana School Speech and Debate Association Policy Final. So welcome here at Avon High School. We have completed the flip. We started with 20 teams and we're down to the final 2. On the affirmative, you will have the speakers are Fulk and Rubchinsky, and the negative team will be Kenning and Walker. We shall begin.
Awesome. And before I begin, I'd like to say a few thank yous. This is my last round of policy debate ever, and first and foremost, I want to thank the Carmel debate program. In the past 4 years, you guys have shown me family and success and triumph, and it's been a real honor. Specifically, I'd like to thank my coach who's here, Coach McMillan. You really saved our team, and we really do rely on you. It's been awesome. And also my policy family, it's awesome to see you guys all here. You guys keep us going, and you're the reason I keep doing this. I love you all so much. I'd also like to thank my parents. They tolerate the incredible stress I go through for this every year, and they wake up early to drive me to tournaments, and I really wouldn't be here without their support. I'd also like to thank all of my opponents from today, specifically those here in the final round. I've come to know them as incredibly talented debaters, but also awesome people. You guys are awesome, and congratulations on being here. And finally, I'd like to thank my partner and best friend, Evelina. It's been the most wild 4 years, and I couldn't have asked for a better ending. So, without further ado, is everybody ready for me to start the first affirmative speech? Awesome. We'll begin time now. In today's world, innovation is commodified for profit by patent trolls, harming technological advancements and consumer outcomes. However, one crucial change in the patent system may clear a path where businesses can create, not litigate. Status quo, what are patent trolls? Smith 20. Patents are supposed to encourage innovation, but patent assertion entities, or PAEs, commonly called patent trolls, acquire intellectual property without the intention of using it. They instead sell or license patents and sue unsuspecting users. 87% of defendants settle before trial to avoid litigation fees, but only 1% are actually guilty. Purdue Global Law School, 19. Many patents being litigated are of low quality. Nevertheless, the threat of drawn-out legal proceedings is enough to pressure most defendants into a settlement. Less than 1% of defendants in patent troll suits are found to have actually infringed on a valid patent, yet 87% settle before trial because the cost of defense is so high, more than $3.2 million on average. Thus the plan. The United States federal government should significantly strengthen its protection of domestic intellectual property rights by implementing a loser-pay-all system, where the losing party of a patent suit pays the legal fees for both parties. Advantage 1 is consumer benefits. Subpoint A. Everyone pays nearly $1,300 today each year as a result of frivolous patent litigation. Daily 15. Frivolous patent litigation costs U.S. businesses $29 billion a year in direct costs and $80 billion in indirect costs. That imposes a $943 burden on each U.S. household. That shows up as fewer jobs, higher prices, and suppressed innovation. Subpoint B. Patent trolls force companies to stop production. This is social loss. Besson 12. Aside from direct legal fees, litigation involves a diversion of resources away from productive activity. It may also involve a loss of consumer welfare. Injunctions can shut down production and sales while the litigation pends. Subpoint C. Patent trolls are harmful for innovation. Mangal 23. One of the primary impacts of patent trolls on innovation is that they can deter companies from investing in research and development. This can have a chilling effect on innovation and is particularly acute for small and medium-sized businesses. The cost of defending against a patent troll lawsuit can be significant. The threat of litigation can deter them from entering markets or developing technologies. This can stifle competition. Subpoint D. The innovations that trolls target are essential for societal well-being. Zanzalari, 24, a professor of economics. Patent assertion entities have manipulated authority. For example, if just one of the patents involved in a smartphone is found to be infringing, the entire product can be banned from American shelves. Stopping innovative technology is detrimental. When patent troll firms attack essential products, they restrict access and increase prices for consumers. Subpoint E. Loser pays with lower cost of litigation by eliminating patent trolls. Mayor Goy's 2009, from the Cornell International Law Journal. The loser pays system should be adopted to ameliorate exorbitant litigation costs. Researchers have evaluated the effectiveness of a loser pay system in the United States and determined that it would indeed decrease the number of lawsuits brought by patent trolls. Subpoint F. The plan increases competition, which increases overall consumer benefits. Knudsen 21. Healthy market competition is fundamental. When firms have to compete, it leads to lower prices, higher quality goods, greater variety, and more innovation. Advantage 2 is the economy. Subpoint A. Trolls hurt both small and large businesses. Purdue Global Law School 19. Patent troll litigation targets large companies such as Apple and Microsoft. However, 66% had annual revenues of less than $100 million, and 55% had annual revenues of $10 million or less. Many were startups, and the litigation caused some to shut down. Subpoint B. Under the plan, companies can reallocate what would have been spent on litigation towards productive activity. Heineke 15. Companies sued by patent trolls must allocate resources that otherwise would have been spent on developing. Without litigation spending, companies could invest more in R&D, resulting in a cycle of growth. Subpoint C. Decreasing the number of patent trolls will protect small businesses, which supplies local economies. Rubchinsky 22. Small businesses imply more people and are more resilient. Small businesses put money back into the local community, which can improve public services. Small business creates new economies where once there was nothing, and small businesses are also more adaptable. A global health crisis may have rocked the economy, but the formation of new U.S. businesses rose to historic peaks in 2021. Subpoint D. Economic growth leads to a laundry list of benefits. Hedinger 21. The benefits of economic growth include higher average incomes, lower unemployment, improved public services, money spent on protecting the environment, investment, increased research and development, and decline in absolute poverty. Subpoint E. U.S. economy is key to the global economy. Siebert 23. The U.S. economy has effects far beyond its shores. Growth could provide a significant boost to the global economy. And advantage 3 is patent quality. Subpoint A. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, or USPTO, cannot keep up with patent trolls. Plebs 22. Patent trolls drown out competition from smaller market entrants, and the Patent Office is so inundated with patent applications that it has difficulty keeping pace. The result is that many innovators feel threatened rather than empowered by the patent system. Subpoint B. Backlogs have reached record high levels. Crouch 24. The backlog of unexamined applications has risen sharply in recent years, reaching 800,000 applications in October 2024. The backlog of all pending applications also recently reached an all-time high at over 1.2 million. This backlog can be attributed to a reduction in examiner production expectations, and the USPTO is aggressive about firing patent examiners who are unable to keep pace. Subpoint C. This backlog creates exceptionally low patent quality. Ellenberger 19. As patent backlogs linger, the stress of pending applications may force an examiner's hand into issuing suboptimal patents, which can harm patent offices in reputation and revenue. Subpoint D. The plan destroys the source of patent troll profits. Boe 19. Loser pays attorney fees regime would reduce the incentive to file frivolous claims, decrease settlements, and increase quality of patents. Fee shifting will cause plaintiffs to bring lawsuits only when they have a chance of prevailing on merits. As a consequence, abusive litigators will be discouraged. Fee shifting causes legitimate PAEs with high-quality patents to file more often. In this regard, fee shifting might raise the quality of patents. Subpoint E. High-quality patents lead to a clearer and more resilient system. Wagner 2009. A low-quality patent system is self-reinforcing. The converse is also true. A patent system with higher quality patents seems likely to be more certain, less prone to manipulation, and thus encourage patentees to seek better and clearer patents. Subpoint F. Our method of disincentivizing lawsuits is the only way to achieve progress. High-Tech Inventors Alliance 18. Only by understanding the mechanisms of patent quality will progress be made in improving our situation. No patent office will fix patent quality. A serious effort will need to address why patent trolls have become embedded in current legal policy discourse. To conclude, the U.S. is an outlier in our patent litigation system, and we should switch to the world's practice of loser pays, LUSO 5. The English rule is more efficient and ethically superior. Nowhere else in the world are there as many resources invested in the legal system as in the U.S., and everywhere else in the world a loser pays system is used. Foreign politicians and scholars know the American system exists and consciously chose to reject it. It is time that our country does the same. With that, I'm open for cross. Do you want to stand up here? Would that be better?
It's fine.
Okay.
idea is to embrace what the countries in Europe are doing, right?
Yes.
You want to uphold the system, the same economic structures, the structures that they're doing, and emulate it.
Okay, I don't want to uphold every single thing that European economies do. What I do want to do is uphold their patent litigation system.
Alright, but the intellectual property system.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Then
loser pays part.
you said that, so in Europe, every single court case, the loser pays the winner's fees are paid by the loser.
Yes. In patent suits as well.
In patent suits, okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll move on to the patent trolls. On the consumer benefits part that you talked about, did you just apply the $1 billion in litigation just divided by the U.S. population? How did the card get to the $943?
Oh yeah, okay, so basically the card is legitimate research on that. I'm not the one that did the division. This says that this excess cost on businesses filters down to around $943 for each household. I adjusted for inflation.
So you adjusted for inflation?
Yes, I adjusted the $943 burden to $1,300 today because we are still seeing patent trolls, and that card was from 2015. Either way, there's still a burden on U.S. households.
Okay, then I'm going to go on to the economy here. You say that you solve patent trolls, but is your plan not literally making it so that these small corporations will go bankrupt if they lose the court case?
Okay, our evidence on that and our response is that small companies are actually only guilty 1% of the time.
1% of the time on the ones that don't settle.
Right, of the ones that don't settle. Right, so 1% are guilty.
So
when they actually do choose to go to trial, they only lose when they're actually guilty.
Are you aware of Rule 12 in law?
Am I aware?
Of Rule 12. It says that you can dismiss a motion, you can file a motion to dismiss if the court case does not make it so that there's no way for the victor to actually get money back, to get a reward.
Yeah, so that's basically saying for reward cases.
Yes, but wouldn't you eliminate Rule 12? Because in loser pays all, you are now inherently going to have the reward of no longer having your fees paid in every single court case. Thus, you can no longer file for a motion to dismiss on grounds of that.
How is that a question?
I'm just asking.
Okay, can you give me a question?
Yes.
Paragraph?
You're making it so that every court case, there will be a financial benefit for us, the winner.
The financial benefit to the winner is not having to pay the legal fees, correct?
Yes, okay. We'll establish that. And is there any form of loser pay all in the U.S. right now?
Not a nationwide law. I mean,
if there's not a nationwide law, you're saying. So
there is some case-by-case practice, but it happens so minimally.
If there is a nationwide law, there's no need for your plan, correct?
I mean, that's what our plan is.
Alright,
but there's not a nationwide consistent practice on patents.
If there's a nationwide consistent practice of loser pays all, there's no need for the
That is what the affirmative plan is.
Alright, thank you.
Before I do my speech, I want to give thanks to my coaches. Help me get through 3 years of debate. I want to give special thanks to my partner. Helped me a lot this year, advance and get a lot better. And I want to help my team for always being there, helping, even though we went through some things. It all turned out in the end, and I want to thank you guys for that. And also my family for always helping me with it, and also my brothers for helping me through it all. Okay, for a brief off-time roadmap, I'll be going 2 off case and then on case. Is anyone not ready? First on the CAP case, strengthening IPR entrenches contemporary economic relations and is mutually exclusive with an anti-capitalist alternative. That's right 14. The greatest threat of IP is not simply exploiting laborers and underpaying employees, it is a threat to freedom, imposed on all levels of society by the modern corporate elite. When scientists stop working on a protein molecule because there are too many intellectual property rights molecules, a basic freedom to research has been interfered with. IPR is strongly favors corporate elites and come into conflict with basic freedoms and rights that are part of common good. hidden behind technical rulemaking, mystifying legal doctrine, and complex bureaucracies. An atmosphere of endless tinkering, learning, and innovation of anyone who wants to participate, as well as reunited intellectual laborers with the products of their labor, evokes Marx's this vision precisely because free software developers seek to avoid forms of estrangement synonymous with capitalist production. Marx did not want to abolish all private property, just as what is used for oppression by the bourgeoisie intellectual property. Being used by the corporate elites to oppress all of society has become an obstacle to basic freedoms, to tinker and innovate. Marx would be opposed to intellectual property. The real question today is not whether how much property should be private and how much they should be the public domain. Communal property, particularly when it comes to ideas and information, is essential to learning, innovation, and production of culture. 2. Capitalism is the root cause of militarism. Nuclear war and environmental destruction guarantees extinction. That's Hamburg and Durber 23. The existential threat has grown. This is not simply because of climate, but the risk of nuclear war. U.S. capitalism fuels climate change and militarism for 5 reasons. Elevating profit over all aims, commitment to unfettered economic growth, expanding markets and resources, producing commodities for sale, and concentrating political power among corporate elites. Many U.S. wars have been fought to secure oil. Protecting the U.S. right to create climate change is fueling forever wars. Climate change drives war. Militarism drives climate change. The military is a monster carbon producer in fueling huge submarines and tanks, producing planes and running bases. The fossil fuel industry is extractable capitalism. U.S. interests in selling oil were a major factor fueling U.S. interests in war. Capitalism economies are crucial structural extinction forces. And 3, the alternative is a class-based movement towards a socialism. Only rejecting capitalism ideology allows for sustainable development. That's Foster 19. Socialism learns from failures, narrow economic ends, monopoly and financialization undermine global society and ecology. A class-based movement towards socialism opens up qualitative new developments. Socialist tech is long-term planning, equality, solidarity, and sustainability. It's not physically impossible, lack of surplus currently squandered. Technological know-how, material means, and inherent division of humanity that obstructs a new international, that disregards a logic to counter to capitalism. New communication allows for better action. Now now we'll go straight to case. On inherency, there's no inherency. Courts can already choose to do lose or pay all for bad faith suits. That's Riley 22. The American rule has an exception for bad faith. In this case, the court awarded fees under the bad faith exception, despite the fact that the prevailing party never requested attorney fees. Washington's appellate court division fee awarded attorney's fees under the equitable exception to the American rule when the plaintiff hasn't even requested such fees. Judge, there is no legal inherency. There is already federal rules and procedures that do the plan, like Rule 11. Rule 11 gets you attorney's fees if a lawsuit is frivolous and has been used before. This wins us the round automatically. As for the patent troll suits that are frivolous, the plaintiff will already get their fees paid. This is an automatic neg ballot. The app conceded this in Cross-X. Now onto their harms. On their innovation. 1. Breakthrough innovation is booming across all industries. Issued patents are at an all-time high. You're ready, 22. Despite the pandemic, innovation happening at a record-breaking pace. A survey of top executives found companies have set records for new business formations, new patents, venture capital, and more. The Census Bureau's data shows record applications have been filed. Venture capital flows have also boomed. What's striking about dramatic advances, they largely entail people being bolder with innovation than ever before. Now onto their consumer harms. 1. Small businesses are thriving. GEC 24. Small business growth drives a strong U.S. economy. Small businesses drove 44% of all output. Small businesses contributed more than half of all net job growth. Small businesses are the backbone of thriving local economies and rural communities. Small businesses help spur the economic recovery, and growth is booming due to new entrepreneurs. Now onto their solvency. 1. The patent system is structurally ineffective. The plan can't solve. Atlantic 12. Our patent system is a mess. It's found of expensive litigation that allows aging companies to linger, bullying initiative, and innovative competitors. A Federal Reserve Bank working paper argued that any patent system, no matter how well conceived, is bound to devolve. Theoretically and empirically, weak legislation evolved into a strong protection demand for stronger patent protection comes from old and stagnant industries and firms. And 2, turn. Small businesses can't even win litigation cases. The plan forces small businesses to pursue cases they will lose. That's Hickson 15. Small companies will have little chance of defending their IP rights against infringement by a larger, better financed competitor. The legal steps will increase cost and time required, and the circumstances in which the challenger can be ordered to pay all legal costs will be expanded. But big businesses with large cash reserves and long time horizons will have a huge advantage. Small companies with small cash and reserves, for startups struggling to get profit, short time horizons will often be well advised to let the big companies have their way. It is very hard and risky for a small company to prevail in a patent action with a big company, even if its case appears to be quite good. Judge, the loser pay all is contingent on the case finishing big corporations. We'll just draw out court cases until these small businesses go bankrupt and the act can't even solve that. And then also 3, turn. Loser pays, destroys innovation, kills the job market, and doesn't even stop patent trolls. That's Quinn 15. Fee shifting provisions won't change anything. We know that corporations settle bad cases, which means that there will be no prevailing parties and hence no attorney fees. Even if corporations change their ways, the nefarious actors will simply declare bankruptcy and never pay a dime. Fee shifting simply won't matter to patent trolls. Ironically, fee shifting will only matter to smaller entities. For these companies, capital is essential to survival, so the risk associated with losing and paying attorney's fees will be too much to bear. If that happens, why would these small and entities even bother using the patent system in the first place to obtain rights they know will never be enforced? That will drive innovation under the ground and at least the innovation that continues. Without patents, investors will simply ignore innovative startups, which means they will all die. That will be extraordinarily harmful to job creation because startups are disproportionately responsible for job creation. With great certainty, I can tell you that if fee-shifting provisions are enacted, they will have significant consequences and patent trolls will be completely unaffected. And that is time. I'm open for talks.
Awesome. You ready?
Just time.
Awesome, great, we'll start time now. So beginning with this capitalism K. First of all, does IP benefiting corporate elites entrench capitalism? Is that the link?
It is saying that the IP that by strengthening intellectual property rights, it reinforces the idea of capitalism, and that is not good because capitalism fuels climate change and militarism.
Yeah, and you link this to extinction, right? But we have seen patent protections before in the past. Why haven't we seen extinction yet, or these catastrophic impacts? What's the brink?
Because we are on the way. We are on the brink right now, and by just reinforcing intellectual property rights, it further fuels the idea of capitalism. Okay,
do you read evidence that enforcing patent protections in the past, or something such as loser pays, will cause an increase in climate change or nuclear escalation?
Yes, you look at the evidence I
Right, is it specific to loser pays or patent protections?
You entrench the form of thought, and by doing that...
Okay, yeah, the form of thought of capitalism, right?
Of capitalism as a total, and by strengthening it, it further just reestablishes the capitalism norm.
Right, and what's interesting here is capitalism is an economic system, but you also say our economy is thriving. So why would we want to get rid of capitalism then?
Because capitalism thriving doesn't mean anything outside of a view of the...
Capitalism is the United States economic system. If you read that our economy is thriving, why would we want to switch the economic system?
Because people will still suffer under the capitalism ideology. And by enforcing that, it still adds to the whole entire mess.
So then the alt on this is socialism, right? The alternative.
The alternative is a class-based movement towards socialism.
Okay, yeah, so what's the mechanism to reach the alt? How much do you fiat? How much do you not fiat? What do you mean by class-based movement? Do you fiat just grassroots protests towards socialism?
I'm sorry, could you restate the question?
What are you fiating to reach a socialist system?
Debate is a space of revolution. We should be able to do the counterplan and its importance because of it.
So you fiat that the United States becomes socialist?
That is the alternative, yes.
Okay, and you fiat that it just happens, we become socialist? Okay, we can move on actually. On the point about about nefarious actors declaring bankruptcy and that it wouldn't affect patent trolls at all, did you read that nefarious actors will just declare bankruptcy?
Yes, we said
Okay,
that.
then wouldn't we actually want patent trolls to declare bankruptcy because those are the nefarious actors?
I'm sorry, can you restate the question?
That's time, but we can look at the card during prep. Speaking of which, we're going to start with prep. Yeah, I'd like to see the card that you read about nefarious actors declaring bankruptcy.
First and foremost, I want to thank my team, specifically my policy team. That's all you guys right here, Ethan, Arian, Arjun, and May, Abner, and Lang. Thank you guys, you made it all worth it this year. I cannot imagine this year without you guys. I also would like to thank my family, to my dad, who judges nearly every tournament. I'm so sorry your judging career is coming to an end. To my mom, who always listens to me talk about debate. I know it's probably really boring, but it does mean a lot. I also want to say thank you to my brother Leo, who is probably the reason I joined debate, so to all of you guys, thank you. I also want to thank my opponents today. Like Kelly said, you guys are incredibly worthy opponents. You are not just talented, you are also honest and fair, and that really does mean a lot. Lastly, I want to thank my best friend, who just so happens to be my partner, Kelly. There is nobody else who I would have rather done this in the past 4 years, and thank you for everything. So with that, because I'm sure you guys are bored of me talking already, is anybody not ready? Okay, so for an off-time roadmap, I'm just going to go down the order of the previous speech, so that's CAPK, and then take the on-case. I'll snap those throughout. Okay, is anybody not ready? With that, I'll start my time. Now, let's start on the CAPK. We have 7 responses here. First, the link to the CAPK says that the plan hurts small businesses. But on the contrary, there are 4 mechanisms by which the plan actually helps small businesses. Let's get started here. First of all, most of the businesses targeted by patent trolls are small businesses. By decreasing the amount of money that there is being taken away, these small businesses can actually spend money on innovation. This is Bacchus 22. Critics say that cracking down on patent trolls will mean hurting the little guy, but these assertions are not backed up by the data. Almost 60% of the companies sued by patent trolls are small. By taking away patent trolls, we can help small businesses thrive. The second way the plan helps small businesses is by decreasing the backlogs. By eliminating patent trolls, plan decreases the number of patents that are filed for, and then you can extend the Ellenberger 19 card from the 1EC that says less backlogs means stronger patents. Stronger patents are key to small businesses. This is Keating 08. An efficient system matters to entrepreneurs and small businesses. Small innovative firms rely more heavily upon the patent system than larger enterprises, and larger companies possess trade secrecy and access to markets, speed of development, but small businesses do not have these. Patents matter to small entrepreneurial firms. We make stronger patents that help small businesses. The third way that we help small businesses is that they will have the ability to sue larger businesses and defend themselves without the threat of expensive legal fees. The AF plan actually empowers these businesses because under the affirmative plan, the losing party has to pay the fees for both sides. So suing a large business is not going to collapse a small one. Now let's look at the fourth mechanism by which the plan actually helps small businesses, and this is the most important. European precedent proves that the loser pay system won't kill small businesses. This is Microsoft 2009. The greatest fear with the loser pay system is that it gives wealthy litigants an unfair advantage. However, research in Europe suggests that this fear is unfounded. Instead, the rule deters speculative lawsuits that type are armed by patent trolls by imposing financial liability. But if you don't believe that, small and medium-sized businesses still account for 99% of European businesses. That's from the EU in 2023. If they didn't kill small businesses in Europe, it's not going to kill them in the US. The link to CAPK is that there's like larger businesses, monopolies. We help small businesses, therefore you can just take that link directly out. But the second argument here on CAPK is that there's no direct link to the plan. My partner asked about this in cross. They don't have any evidence that plan is, that specifically the loser pay system is going to make this worse. Third, you can weigh on past precedent. They say that that capitalism is horrible, that's going to lead to all these things extinction. We have capitalism for like centuries. Last time I checked, we're all still standing here today. It's not going to lead to extinction. Our fourth argument here is they have no mechanism to their alt. They just say that like debate is like a space like that we just should just say that like, oh, we're going to now have socialism. We say this isn't fair. AF has the burden to prove. We have have solvency, we need to prove why we're able to get our impacts. The neg has to do the same. They can't just say that they get socialism. But even if you believe that they get socialism, the alt fails, but capitalism is sustainable. This is Hansen in 21. Moving beyond capitalism is an enormous task, and the world is predominantly capitalist, surviving centuries of attempted revolutions. Plan would make climate more difficult, more difficult, less hospitable, and leading to deterioration. Investments in climate mitigation are substantial. So, capitalism works, and also you can refer past precedent. In every single case in history, we've seen capitalism versus communism/socialism. Capitalism has always won. You can weigh centuries of history over speculation from the negation. You can also look at every single attempt in history. Socialism never worked. Neg is going to come up here and say that the true form of socialism has never been implemented. That proves that it is impossible. Now, let's move on to the sixth argument here. They have no evidence that says that the affirmative plan is the brink to, all this destruction in capitalism. They just say that generally increasing IPR exploits laborers. Once again, way past precedent. We've seen increased IP protection and patent protection over the past couple centuries, and yet we have not seen the impacts from this cap K. So way past precedent over speculation. And seventh, they argue capitalism is bad, but then in the on case they say that the U.S. economy is thriving. The U.S. uses a capitalist system. Part of the reason why our economy is thriving is because we use a capitalist system. You can use their own evidence against them. And I would prefer a system like the U.S. that actually works, as opposed to attempts at socialism like the USSR that very clearly failed. Once again, vote for what works, not over speculation. Now let's move on to the on case. The inherency argument. They say that there's an exception that loser pays exists in the United States, but that only exists for 1% of the time. The app needs this to be widespread practice in order to deter trolls. This is Microsoft 2009. In exceptional cases, the court may award reasonable attorney fees to a prevailing party, but the burden of proving an exceptional case is very high. The exception lies solely in the judge's discretion and only occurs in 1% of suits. So, sure, we have in 1% of all patent suits, we see this fee shifting. We want it to be in all patent suits so we can actually get the impacts of the plan, so we can actually get the benefits of the plan by deterring patent trolls. Also, they say we don't have this inherency, therefore status quo solves, but patent trolls still clearly exist. This one uncontested. That proves that only having loser pays for 1% of the time doesn't work. Now let's move on to the harms. They say innovation is already high. I have two responses to this. First of all, innovation being high today is only relative to yesterday and the day before. So just because innovation might be high this year, that's only relative to last year. Maybe it was worse last year, this year increased. Obviously there are several things influencing innovation. We're talking about one of them, which is patent trolls. Second, we say even if you agree that innovation is already high now, it can be even higher. There is no reason to vote on this argument. At its worst, plan just makes innovation even better. That's a net benefit. Now, their second argument here is that small businesses are thriving right now. Once again, this is only relative to previous thriving of small businesses. Maybe last year they were doing really good and this year they're doing even better, but that doesn't mean that patent trolls weren't still attacking them. Obviously there are multiple influences on what can help small businesses thrive. We're attacking one of them. We're talking about patent trolls, and we know that patent trolls hurt businesses. They cost businesses $110 billion a year. That is money that could be spent on innovation. Instead it's being spent on litigation. We're saying let's allocate that money to do something good. Second, they read this evidence on how small businesses are important. We agree. We know small businesses are important. That's why we need to protect them. Third, and even if you agree that small businesses are thriving right now, same with the innovation argument, we can help them thrive even more with the plan. So even if you agree their argument, even if you believe their argument that small businesses are thriving right now, at its worst, plan just helps small businesses even more. There's no net negative to that. Let's move on to solvency. They have three main arguments here. First, they say that the patent system is a mess. We agree there are problems in the patent system. So first of all, we can't solve every single problem in the patent system, but what we can do is pick one problem and actually and do a lot to solve it. But second, we know that plan can help. Specifically, I'm going to read a card from Wild24. Who says that everyone who works in patents knows that in Europe patent trolls are next to non-existent because the conditions that gives to their rising existence in the U.S., sky-high litigation costs and no loser pays provisions do not exist on this side of the Atlantic. So what does this mean? This means that in Europe we have the loser pay system. We know it works. They have virtually no trolls. They say the patent system is a mess, but we say that one thing at least we can do to help the patent system is by decreasing all patent trolls. We've seen it work in Europe. Let's implement it in the United States. Now so their second argument here is a term that says small businesses can't win. You can classify the four mechanisms by which we actually help small businesses. That's that plan helps small businesses since patent trolls will no longer target them. That's that plan helps small businesses through strengthening patents. That's small businesses are empowered to go litigate because now they don't have the threat of costly litigation. And the fourth argument is that it worked in Europe, it'll work in the United States. You can classify all four of those to the terms we help small businesses, we don't harm them. Now, their third argument here is that loser pay doesn't work. But they have this like Quinn card that talks about like reasons why loser pays might not work, but we say you should prefer what is actually happening in status quo over speculation. Once again, you can refer to the Wild 24 card that I just read. We have seen loser pay exist in Europe. They have virtually no trolls. Let's pick a system that actually works in status quo. Judges, I urge you to believe what is actually happening in status quo over speculation from the negation. Prefer what really exists, what is truly happening over ifs, buts, and maybes. So, let's talk about why AF wins this debate. First of all, Cap K, we only help small businesses, and we would have already seen impacts from Cap. Ooh, and that's time, and I owe the cost. Oh, yeah.
Is anyone not ready? Now, so let's just say a small business goes in and they lose a litigation case. Are you going to force them to pay?
Right. So I want to point out there first and foremost that this is the Purdue Global Law School card from the 1AC. It's like I believe the second card. Small businesses only lose less than 1% of the time. We say that you should vote for the AF so that for the 99% of the time that they win.
Okay, could I see that card?
Yeah. That's right here. It's just the second card in the 1AC.
Where in the card does it say small businesses?
Well, okay, so the card says that less than 1% of defendants in control suits are found to have actually infringed on a patent. Now, we can, if you would like, we can read other evidence. The majority of, I believe it's this card right here, we can bring it up in the next speech, but the majority of businesses that are targeted by patent trolls are small businesses.
Thank you. So that card doesn't talk about small businesses whatsoever.
Right.
Just to clarify.
Okay. The majority of businesses that are targeted by patent trolls are small businesses, and we see that less than 1% of the time they win 99% of the time. So just by logic, most of those are small businesses.
Okay. Could you give me a percentage of those being small businesses?
Yeah, I believe I read that card here. Yeah, this is the Bacchus 22 card. It was the first card I read on the link turn. It talks about how almost 60% of companies being sued by patent trolls are small or medium sized.
Okay. Okay, but just to clarify, anyone who loses the litigation case has to pay.
Correct.
Okay.
But I'd also like to point out that we have evidence, as some Microsoft evidence, that says that the claims that this would hurt small businesses are unfounded. It didn't happen. Okay, sorry.
So, sorry to cut you off, but
No, it's all right.
I have more questions. So you say, just to clarify, you're saying that small businesses aren't doing good now, correct?
We're saying that one of the factors that is hurting small businesses in status quo is patent trolls.
Okay, so they're not doing good now.
Okay, well, them doing good now is just like all relative to like the year before. We're saying that there is something that is harming small businesses, costing them billions of dollars. That's something that we can alleviate.
Okay, thank you. And that's
I'll say thank you to our mom, and then to all the debaters in our school, all my partners, half that are in here, but, and then I'll also say thank you to like the wider debate community. I know Patrick, Riley, y'all have helped me a lot, even though you're from different schools, just talking about debate, being friends, and it's been really helpful. I want to say thank you to my opponents. Y'all are you're great debaters. I love facing you guys because you always make bring something new to the round. And just, let's debate, have fun. And Sean, thank you, Sean. Okay. I'll do this. I'm going to be going K and then inherency. Is anybody not ready? Alright, I'll begin. Starting now. In this round, the affirmative strives to defend the justifications behind the 1AC. Compare philosophically competitive socioeconomic systems. They can weigh the plan as a justification for capitalism, but we can defend the alternative. The permutations, they don't even read it first of all, but the plan uniquely expands capitalism and justifies contrary ideological alternative. Then, to this, our opponents talked a ton about the fact that they increase small businesses, but that's entrenching the idea of capitalism. It's entrenching the privatization of property. That's what they're entrenching. They're entrenching capitalism within their plan. They didn't read a perm to our plan, which means you need to weigh the alt against their case, and the alt kills their case. And capitalism as a whole kills their case. They're said that the EU proves that losing power won't kill small businesses. Again, the EU is also a part of capitalism. It's a part of the same system. They completely linked to it. Their linked arguments flow to our side. They're entrenching the protection of intellectual property strength, which leads to capitalism. Then, they also say that, the way we sum it up, they want little guy capitalism, but small businesses exist. That is still capitalism. It still applies to all of our impacts. We still win this round on this K. This is an easy ballot. They did not answer this K. They didn't even read a perm on it. Don't let them try and come up here in the 1 hour and try and do that. This is easy. You need to weigh the K against the case, and we win easily. Then, moving on to our opponents, read first, they said like the app isn't the brink, but that's fundamentally misunderstanding what the K is. They're entrenching the idea of capitalism. You need to weigh the system behind it. They're defending the system of capitalism within this debate round, which is the more important issue than the topic that they're debating, is what we're saying. That means that the brink argument doesn't matter. Then, they read that capitalism is sustainable, but that's untrue. One, you can look at the Palisade fires right now. Fires are raging through California. We're seeing the environmental destruction. You can look what's happening over in Palestine. People are dying. You're seeing the impact of capitalism now. Then, also, we're going to move on and read the fact that poverty is increased because of capitalism. They put a happy face on colonialism, Hickle 19. Today, most of humanity struggles to survive on small amounts of money. What was going on was a process of dispossession during colonization. Roosevelt's graph illustrates forced proletariatization. Gates' infographic takes violence of colonialization and repackages it as a happy story. People have terrible levels of malnutrition and brutality. The number of people living under the line is reaching 4.2 billion people. Our system is failing humanity. Just because we can sit here in America and say nothing's happening, our economy is booming, doesn't mean there's not 4 billion people dying all across the world because of capitalism. That supersedes anything happening in this debate round. It is an instantaneous negative ballot. Then, moving on, we're also going to argue. Our opponents said past precedent like it defends capitalism. Capitalism justifies slavery, justifies sexism, homophobia, transphobia. It justifies the oppression of minorities and people suffering. It justifies the oppression of people along socioeconomic lines. Historically, capitalism has caused the suffering of people. Their past precedent is a point for us. Then, moving on after this, we're also going to read, patents produce an unequal exchange that allow the global north to maintain inequality through resource and labor expropriation. Hickle 22. Rich countries maintain price inequalities. Countries that grow rich during the colonial period now leverage economic dominance to depress labor and resources extracted from the south. The north finances net appropriation by maintaining prices of southern resources and labor below the global average level. Patents play a key role here. 97% of patents are held by corporations in high-income countries. The iPhone is produced in the south by arm's length suppliers. Apple in the north forces suppliers to compete with wages depressed to subsistence. This allows Apple to obtain the iPhone for cheap and then leveraging its patent monopoly up the final price by to over 100%. Patents force people in the south to pay for access to resources that might have otherwise been obtained much more affordably or even for free. They're entrenched in the system of capitalism, which is killing us all, and it's proving the fact that literally the only reason these businesses are able to thrive in the US is because of billions of people are suffering. Anything they read about businesses is still applying to the K. They link to this K, and you need to weigh this fact that we win on it. Then, moving on, our opponents read that the alt failed, and they try and come after us with alt fiat. But they're fiating the idea of Congress passing it. We can fiat the alt world. That's what our K is doing. Then, we're also going to read that the alt works. That forcing teams to defend radical alternatives provides them with both the desire and the ability to inaugurate change. Our model spills up and works. Ramen 16. To expand agency, we might seek alternative vehicles for democratic collective action through which to build the power of ordinary citizens. We see a similar revival of interest in spaces for policy experimentation as offering for small holds with an eye toward larger national debate and eventual policies change. Such can be accomplished through a particular approach to law and social change, prioritizing the synergies between normative arguments, social movements, and legislative and regulatory changes. The absent full engagement with the normative questions of values approaches risk of falling into an overly narrow or neutral policy science. Legal realism could build on these traditions, linking the analysis to a substantiated moral vision of democratic political economy. We're living in a moment of rupture. Projects of constitutional political economy could help contribute in some way to a shift. If we're even slightly shifting people moving towards capitalism, it's worth voting on the K because of the fact that it's literally is going to kill us all. And additionally, it's the fact that when we read this in the debate round, it educates every single person in this room on the dangers of capitalism. This is spilling over. People talk about it out to the debate round. Hey, did you hear what they ran in the state finals? A cap K. Let's talk about capitalism. This leads to the alt. The alt does work in this world. They didn't perm this. We win. Then, we're also going to read, even the smallest acts of refusal contribute to the revolutionary dismantling of capitalism. Holloway 5. The starting point is uncertainty. Not knowing a common search for capitalism is a catastrophe for humanity. A radical change in the organization of society that is revolution is more urgent than ever. This means that the only way in which we can conceive of a revolution is an interstitial revolution, as a revolution that takes place in the interstices of capitalism, a revolution that occupies spaces in the world where capitalism exists. The world is full of such rebellions of people saying no to capitalism. No, we should not live our lives according to the dictates of capitalism. Sometimes we just see capitalism as an all-accompanying system of domination and forget that rebellions exist everywhere. At times they're so small that those even involved do not perceive them as refusals. All these insubordinations are characterized by a drive towards self-determination, an impulse that says, no, you will not tell me what to do, we shall decide for ourselves what we must do. These refusals can be seen as fissures, as cracks in the system of capitalist domination. Capitalism is not an economic system, but a system of command. Capitalists, through money, command us, telling us what to do. To refuse is to obey and break the command of capital. Our opponents, I know I've said this, did not read a perm, so they're going all in. They're going all in on capitalism. What they say the capitalism is good. They read one card that's sustainable, prefer real-world impacts. We see 4.2 billion people in poverty now. Is that a system that's working when 4 billion people are suffering? No. Morally, you have to realize that not only have we out-carded them, but we've out-explained them. They say capitalism is good because the U.S. economy is good. It doesn't matter if the U.S. economy is good when it's only good because of the suffering of billions of people. They do not let them come up in this. They've already lost this round because they didn't read a perm against our K or read any cards really defending capitalism substantially. We win on our cap K easily. Now, moving on to the inherency. This case, even on a normal policy level, is not inherent. Our opponents just said that on our inherency attack that it proves loser pay all doesn't work. That just means they can't solve when they said that. So now they're in a double bind. They're not inherent, but they can't solve. That means literally loser pay all exists now, yet small businesses are not able to do it, means that loser pay all won't work in their worlds because they're doing nothing. They're effectively doing nothing in this round. They're not inherent because of Rule 11, which has loser pay all already. Loser pay all is codified in U.S. law. They're doing nothing. As long as we prove that, we should win the round automatically on presumption because the app is changing nothing in the world. A neg vote on presumption, a neg vote on the cap K, this is a very easy neg ballot in this round. When you're weighing this round, judges, you just need to look at the fact of the matter that not only is their case doing legitimately nothing because they have no inherency, but also you need to weigh it against what they're upholding. They're upholding a system of oppression that has caused the disenfranchisement of millions and millions of people. It's pushed 4.2 billion people into poverty, and it's creating a world where we're going to die from climate change if we extract all these resources, ruining the world. They're upholding this system is what we're saying. They cannot say that, oh, we're not at the brink. No, you are. You're upholding the system, and we need to change in how we're framing our debates. We need to frame our debates on the fact that this is a bigger issue than any topic, than the resolution. This is the more important issue in the world. This is an issue that we need to discuss, and this needs to be a neg ballot so that in future rounds in Indiana, we can develop into a circuit that allows the discussion of these important and critical topics, that produces a better world and a better debate world, and allows us to stop climate change, which is killing us all. I'm now starting for cross-examination.
Okay. Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start my time now. So could you detail how exactly the affirmative plan increases capitalism?
I'll actually-
makes these issues worse.
Yes, I'll use what you argued, actually. You said, we're making it so that we strengthen intellectual property rights so that small businesses can get access to this. What we're saying is the whole system of intellectual property is upholding the system of capitalism. Because these small businesses, with their intellectual property, if they're making that new iPhone that competes with Apple, who's mining it is a 12-year-old kid in the Congo who's going to get their arm chopped off if they don't do it.
Got it. Okay. So is there so your all is like socialism, right? Do you have a single example in history where socialism has actually worked?
Yes, you can look at Burkina Faso under Thomas Sankara. He developed an elite socialist country where they became self-sufficient in meat in a year, and also he upped the literacy rate by 80% in a single year. That's the view of socialism working. You can actually look at Cuba. People oftentimes look at it like that socialism not working, but Cuba's sanctioned by almost the entire world, yet still able to have a better healthcare system, send more doctors out to countries than the U.S. did during COVID, and also help support African liberation movements in Angola during the end of colonialism. So these are two examples of socialism working. We can go.
Okay, so I just want to specify, do patents exist in your alt?
No, the alt is embracing a socialist framework. We're getting rid of the fundamental system of capitalism.
Okay, so you talk about how, so when you talk about your alt, what exactly is the mechanism to achieving your alt? Because you talk about, we're going to get socialism, it's going to be great, fantastic, but how exactly do we get there?
These are the cards I read. First of all, we're embracing a socialist revolution, what we're saying to do. Everyone in this debate room, when we get a neg ballot in this round, it's going to
So
hear.
just on that, like, socialist revolution, like, where are we getting the socialist revolution from? Are we all gonna leave this round and all of a sudden start like a socialist revolution?
This is also the second card we read, is that even the smallest act of refusal contributes to the revolutionary dismantling of capitalism. We're making it slightly better, which is a much better world considering the impacts of capitalism causing extinction. And in this round, also, it spills up. Every single person here is staring at us, listening to us debate about capitalism. So when they hear a neg ballot at the award ceremony, they're going to think, wow, capitalism might actually be worth debating about and talking about. We should actually work to fix it because it's
Okay.
killing billions of people.
Okay, right. So I also want to ask, like, at the end of your speech, you were like, capitalism is like such a big problem, it's the most important thing, whatever we're debating right now. Okay, but then why do we have a resolution if we're just going to debate about whatever is more important? Like, what's the point of a resolution then?
We live in a capitalist country, so they're not going to be, most people, it's not normally the hottest take to walk in and say, let's have a resolution because capitalism good or bad in policy debate. It's a policy topic, but we're saying the
So you're
fundamental
saying
issues
it's a policy topic about patents, we're just going to talk about something else because things more important?
We're saying the fundamental idea of strengthening intellectual property rights is upholding the system of capitalism, which we've explained in 6 minutes of facts and pure facts, that this is causing the impoverishment of billions of people, it's caused the deaths of millions, it's caused slavery, it's caused homophobia, transphobia, sexism.
Right, you say it causes, just one quick last question here, you say it causes slavery and all that stuff, but last time I checked, the United States eliminated slavery under a system of capitalism.
Actually, slavery is still legal. You can look at the prison industrial complex. Millions of black people are still enslaved there, so we still have it.
Got it.
Judge, the affirmative team has no harms. Extend our Ready 22 card saying how breakthrough and innovation is happening across all industries. Small businesses are innovating, they are investing in their companies, and also look at our Joint Economic Committee 24 card saying how small businesses are thriving right now. They don't need any help, and there is no harm to their plan. And also, I have another card. Small businesses are doing good, and innovation is doing good. That's Brucer 81324. The licensing agreements provide a shortcut to market expansion and increased revenue. Partnering with brands, licensing opens doors to new markets. Licensing industries will grow up to $1 trillion. A cornerstone for companies with valuable intellectual property allowed Qualcomm to continue investing, maintaining its position at the forefront of wireless technology innovation. Look to the future. Licensing continues to play a big role across the industries. Availability and all that is key to not just surviving, but thriving. Judge, businesses are doing good right now. They're investing in their businesses. They are innovating and all of that. Now, also onto their solvency. The Act claims that small businesses can just sue large businesses, but look at our Hickson's 15 card that says that small businesses have less money and resources to fight against the large corporations. They're just going to lose every single time, and they will suffer greatly because of that. Also, the Act claims how they help small businesses, but one, small businesses are doing good now, and they are innovating and getting invested in, and two, they kill small businesses, as our Hickson 15 card elaborates on, because they can't even fight back and will have to go bankrupt because they don't have the adequate resources and time for the actual litigation. They're just going to get outcompeted by these large corporations, and they just will suffer and go bankrupt because of it. They cannot pay these legal fees. The app never claims how they have the actual fees to actually go against that. Also, the app is talking about how a loser-pay-all system works in the EU, but the EU is not the US. They're completely different. They are not the same whatsoever. Also, the app claims that there aren't many small businesses that lose and are pleaded guilty, but one, even if they are correct, which they aren't, they're still forgetting about those small businesses that actually are found guilty. Those small businesses could have developed something massive, but they can't anymore because they got sued and went bankrupt. And also, two, here's another turn. Loser pay decreases the likelihood of small businesses defending themselves. That's Small Business Technology Council 15. Loser pays to consumers, corporations, protected groups, or any other private litigants would induce these groups to decline to enforce their legal rights. The result will be that small inventors will be deterred from exercising their rights, and that invention and resulting jobs will dwindle. Perniciously, the smaller firms will be further deterred from investing to develop such rights, as they will need $5 to $10 million. That the large companies know that smaller companies cannot afford to pay the larger businesses legal costs if they lose, and so small businesses will not take the chance. This further proves that it will just de-incentivize innovation as a whole. If they know that they can't win, if they know that they're going to have to pay millions of dollars of legal fees, they're not going to want to innovate whatsoever. And then 3, the act doesn't do anything to actually save the small businesses. Instead, they just let the small businesses collapse, and they themselves said it. The small businesses are key to the economy, and they instead ruin the economy because they ruin the small businesses and let them out in the open and let them rot. And also, the F's card saying how small businesses aren't guilty, it doesn't even talk about small businesses in the card. They gave you the speech as well, hold them accountable to it. It doesn't say small businesses whatsoever in that card. And when pressed about it in cross-acts, they didn't even provide anything in that card talking about small businesses. And in this debate round, you should prioritize the harms and solvency because they have no harms. Innovation is really good right now, and innovation is doing good now, and small businesses are actually being invested in. They're developing new things, and then also the solvency, return their whole entire solvency. Small businesses just cannot compete with these large corporations, and when they lose, they're just going to have to pay millions of dollars, bankrupting it, and this turns their whole entire case because their whole case is reliant on small businesses actually being able to do all the things that they claim. But when they're bankrupt, they can't even do that whatsoever. And also, you should value the cap K over everything. We win the debate round because of it. Because capitalism is a root cause of militarism. It decreases the actual quality of the overall system. And because of that, I urge you to vote in the mitigation. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll begin time now. Judges, I urge you to vote not on utopian societies in this debate and overstated claims, but on past precedent. It's unfortunate, but we live in the real human world, and we have to vote on what has happened in the past, and therefore what we know is going to happen in the future. Starting off with the cap K. So first of all, they said that they can defend the alt. That's true, but they don't actually defend any solvency. We feel our plan. We do not feel our advantages because we should be debating, are these advantages actually going to happen? Are the benefits of socialism actually going to happen? No, and that's because of past precedent. They also don't care enough about small businesses to actually engage with the app. So they're going to play the little man here and say capitalism and all of these atrocities across the world happen, therefore you vote nay. That's not true. That's not the app's fault. And also these atrocities happen way, way more in socialist nations. Every single time we have seen a socialist economic system, we have seen suppression of freedoms. They argue that capitalism operates based on the suppression of small businesses. That is exactly what the act is trying to solve, and also what happens more in socialist countries. This is in the USSR, this is in Cuba. Americans aren't even really allowed to travel to Cuba because they suppress their freedoms of speech. We are talking about the United States Constitution here and people's freedom to protest the government. The reason that the NEG is able to debate here about socialism and protest what's happening in the US government is because of capitalism. Our economic system guarantees us freedom to pursue happiness and to pursue what it is that we want, and that's exactly why you should consider voting for capitalism in this debate. Also, the whole capitalism with small businesses, they dropped a response about how they said this is small capitalism, but that is capitalism with small businesses. That's not true. Capitalism with small businesses is what we have in the US. That's big capitalism. Also, I think it's wrong that they blame all the atrocities that happen in the US on capitalism when we see these exact same atrocities happen in other countries that are socialist or with other economic systems. Also, I think it's unfair for them to say that capitalism is not self-correcting. Obviously, capitalism has had many problems in the past, but I would argue that America today is way better than America 50 years ago, and way better than America 20 years ago, because we are a self-correcting system. Other countries can't do this. When they fail, they still revert back to capitalism at the end of the day. They said that we couldn't read a perm. We didn't read a perm because we agree alt fails. Socialism isn't going to work in this case. That's what we've seen throughout all of human history. Don't let them cite Burkina Faso, which isn't a global elite in economy, and don't let them cite Cuba, which suppresses their citizens' freedom of speech. Also, they can't blame all these, their labor and resource misappropriation card. They cannot say that big businesses holding patents leads to a monopoly, which leads to capitalism. Their main link was with corporate elites here at the beginning of the debate. We turned this link and they dropped it. So essentially what they're saying is that the case actually has no link to capitalism because their link was corporate elitism, which we destroyed. Their only link on this is a solvency point about if we actually help small businesses, which we'll argue that we do when I get into the advantages next. Also, they said at the beginning of the debate that econ is high now. If the econ was high now, why would we get rid of capitalism? This also went dropped. Also, yeah, people talking about capitalism versus socialism outside of the debate doesn't actually cause social change. And I'll tell you why, because both sides are going to say that. I encourage all of you to go out after this debate and think about what is going on in your society that you would like to change. That is not a reason to vote AF or to vote neg. That's just a reason to keep debating. Anyway, moving on to their inherency point. Also, they didn't understand our response here. What we're saying is that this is implemented only 1% of the time. It's not an actual federal law that is enforced. This is case by case. There's legal vagueness in it, and that's why we need a very clear national law that is what the affirmative plan is going to be to implement a loser case system. Moving on to their solvency points. Also, they just said innovation high, but they're, which sure we agree it is, but it always could be better. But the main point about small businesses thriving and innovation is high is this is a relative point. What this means is it's being compared to last year and the year before that and the year before that. You know what's consistent across all those years? There was patent trolls. We know this to be true. They conceded this at the beginning of the debate that patent trolls do exist. Also, they said we also know that it is a public priority that we actually see a better increase in patent quality and also a aid towards small businesses in patents. This is our Heineke card. This response went dropped throughout the debate. Also, they read a warrant about the small businesses thriving. The warrant there was licensing and how small businesses are able to make money through licensing their patents. We agree that's exactly why we need to protect small businesses' patents more. They said the EU doesn't apply. That's not true. They have incredibly similar patent systems except for the affirmative plan, which is exactly why we need to implement it. And as we said at the beginning of the debate, switch to the world's practice. Also, they said that they read this Quinn card that went uncontested as well about loser pays destroying innovation and litigation. We're going to urge you to prefer our Voe card over Quinn because we have better warrants and also the EU precedent to weigh on about loser pays not actually causing a decrease in innovation whatsoever because we're actually deterring patent trolls from litigating in the first place. So them saying small businesses aren't going to take a chance and litigate isn't true because it completely negates or gets rid of the entire first mechanism of our affirmative plan, which is that patent trolls are going to not want to litigate anyway because they know they're going to lose because 99% of the time, as we've proven, they lose. In fact, they said that this card, it doesn't actually say what it does. Yes, it does. 60% of 1% of small business patent suits defendants are small businesses, and of that, yes, and of that 60% of 1%, 1% lose, 1% are guilty. So, yeah, the math on that is 1% of defendants are guilty and 60% of that are small businesses, and those are lose, and those are actually guilty in the first place. That is straight facts. There is no reason then not to go AF. Thank you.
We'll use the rest of it. This runs an easy neg ballot because the AFs fundamentally misunderstood what capitalism is and misapplied it in the round and to not understand or defend the K. Beginning on our opponent's argument on a utopian society, we listed examples in Burkina Faso and Cuba, and also it's U.S. socialists. You can look at Eugene Debs historically. There has been socialism in America. It's not utopian. Then they also dropped their framework that they're defending the justification behind the 1AC, and you should weigh socioeconomic systems. That means their case is really irrelevant in this round, and we should be weighing capitalism versus socialism. And when it comes down to it, it's very heavily leaning in socialism. Then, moving on, our opponents read that there's atrocities in other countries. They didn't read any cards on it. They just said it. We've listed how there's 4.2 billion people in poverty now because of capitalism. We've listed how it's causing militarization, how it's causing the extraction of resources, which is killing us all and killing the environment. Look at the Palisades right now in that fire. They've just said it's happening. Prefer evidence. Prefer the hard truth that 4.2 billion people are suffering. Then, our opponents said capitalism is self-correcting. We should have seen it by now. We've had it for hundreds of years. Why are there still 4 billion people in poverty? Why are people still dying? Why have there been such extreme systems of racism, sexism, and homophobia if it's self-correcting? It still exists now. It's not. That's blatantly untrue. Then, moving on, our opponents said that socialism leads to people being oppressed, but again, we need to see evidence. They have nothing to weigh this against. Instead, prefer our arguments. We've listed, for example, that you can look at the protests after Palestine. That's protest being suppressed right there. You can look at the civil rights movement. That's protest being suppressed right there. You look at all these different examples. People have been oppressed when they've tried to protest against the government. Gary Webb, he was killed for that. You can look at historical examples. Then, you should prefer our actual examples, our actual factually supported things, explaining how, no, in capitalism, you can't actually. You become a target, you die, it is a terrible thing. And then, moving on to the alt, they keep trying to come after our fiat. But first of all, we got the idea of the alt, we got the idea of socialism because of the framework that they already conceded, so we win this because they dropped our framework. But secondarily, with the alt, we also read cards defending it and explaining how the ideas spill over. Every person in this room is listening right now, learning about the dangers of capitalism and expanding their mind to the literature base that they don't honestly see in Indiana. And also, any of the minute change solves. All we need is the smallest change. That was our card. Holloway 15, the smallest change helps. And we're even taking one step against the system, it is a step worth taking. Then, moving on, our opponents said don't cite Cuba or Burkina Faso. That's outrageous. First of all, they're relevant successes, but second of all, that's an imperialistic mindset right there, further showing the need for this critique. People in Indiana right now are entrenched in the concept of capitalism to where, when they see examples right in front of their face of socialism working, they say, oh, but that one's not good, I need a different one. That's just untrue, and it's inherently proving the point and the need for a neg ballot. This state needs a neg ballot on a cap kit in the state final so that we can advance this debate circuit and produce a world in which the dangers of capitalism can actually be discussed, in which we can actually produce a world where debate becomes a space for revolutionary action, revolutionary reform, as the spillover effect leads to a better society. Capitalism is going to kill us all from extinction. The poverty impacts are real. It's killing us all in the climate right now. The nation, the country, the whole world needs this. Then, Our opponents, this is the biggest part we're going to get on, they said both sides talk, then they could have read a KF if they wanted to do that. But they didn't. They have no argument to this. Then also, the second big point, our spillover is unique to this round too, because not every debate round has 50 people in here watching. This round's especially important because it's not just us, them, and the judge. There's 5 judges and a ton of kids watching. This is one of the most important rounds for spillover because there's going to be more people who will see and understand, hey, I can actually win in Indiana by discussing the cap case. I want to discuss this. I want to discuss if we can embrace the socialist alternative and embrace a better future. And then, what this means is that the last thing is that also, that loser pay all is not going to be implemented. They talk about this, we're waiting, when you look at their case, loser pay all is not going to be implemented no matter what the ballot is. So it's irrelevant to this actual debate round. Debate is a space to debate hypotheticals, and we're debating the fact that capitalism is a real danger, and our alternative on the framework and weighing it is clear that socialism is a better alternative than capitalism. Socialism will work, extend, foster, and team. It will work. They've not really spread any evidence against it. They've just peddled the same lies and capitalist propaganda against it. We've provided so many different examples that we've seen in contemporary times. We've provided the fact that 4.2 billion people are dying, that the environment's being destroyed right now, the fact that racism, sexism, and homophobia has been so prevalent in capitalist societies. We've seen resource wars over this. There's no world in which capitalism is considered to be a better system than socialism. Prefer the evidence, prefer the explanation. We've explained for 15 minutes this. They just came up and spent 30 seconds to lies. We win on this. They dropped the framework. Since they dropped the framework, there's no way they win this round because capitalism is obviously worse than socialism. Then, I'll just move on to inherency really quick. Their case is not inherent too. We should win on that too. Even if you're a stocks judge, you could vote on inherency because Rule 11 already codifies loser pay all in the U.S. system. That's our card, Riley et al. 22. Or it's literally saying that right now, if there's a frivolous lawsuit, you already get your fees, that the loser already has to pay the winner's fees because it's a frivolous lawsuit. It's already codified in law. They're doing objectively nothing. And Rule 11 is the app. They're not inherent, but when you weigh it with our framework, you're weighing capitalism against socialism, and we've explained why 4.2 billion people dying is a bad thing, and you should prefer the moral option. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll start my time now. While the negation might be living in their utopian world, the unfortunate truth is that we live in the real world. And judges, my partner and I urge you to vote on realism. I do not appreciate being called an imperialist with entrenched values of a system when I am just being realistic about the truths and not ignoring what the reality of society is. So let's get started onto the flow. The only argument they had on our own case was that Rule 11 has codified the system. Rule 11 doesn't work. We read evidence, there's the Microsoft evidence that says that loser pays only exist 1% of the time in the United States. Very clearly, Rule 11 doesn't work. Plan doesn't exist yet. We need to implement the plan. Second, I'd like to point out that during this debate, they completely dropped all of the on-case. They agree the loser pay works. They agree that we get all of our impacts. Judges, if you look at the resolution that says, should we or should we not, should we or should we not increase protections of IP rights in the United States, they basically give us the ballot on that. They agree that we get all the impacts on that. You can vote AF on that alone, but let's move on to the counterplan. So first they say that Burkina Faso and Cuba are examples of why we need to switch to socialism. First of all, we say those are just 2 small examples. Let's look at a large-scale example. U.S. is obviously a very large country. Let's look at a large-scale example, the USSR. They say that we want to help with civil rights and decrease sexism and stuff. Well, last time I checked, the USSR wasn't a big proponent of feminism. It doesn't work on a large scale. Then they talk about Eugene Debs. Well, very clearly, yes, Eugene Debs is a very important person in American history, but obviously even his efforts didn't work. They say 4.2 billion people are in poverty because of capitalism, but we say that that isn't necessarily taken out from socialism. They say that the Palisade fires occur because of capitalism, but once again, capitalism is self-correcting. It allows for progress in society. They say, why are there still people in poverty? If it's self-correcting, but NEG is ignoring the fact that progress takes time. We can't just eliminate all the problems in society in one snap of our fingers, but what we can do is use a system that actually allows progress. This is really important. They talk about how civil rights protests were suppressed, but under socialism, there isn't even an option for protest. I'd like to point out that yes, there were problems in civil rights, and we've achieved progress. We got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Now we have, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, we're talking about the we're talking about actually increasing help to African Americans in society. We saw progress under capitalism. Let's look at that example of the USSR again. Do you know what they did? They just sent their political opponents to jail. That's what the negation is advocating for. Instead of actual progress, what they want is to just send everyone who says anything against the current anything against what the current government, whatever it is, they're just going to send them to jail. That doesn't achieve progress. That's going backwards. We want to actually take a step forwards. They say that the negation wins because AFT dropped framework. We say that they say that they win fiat because AF dropped the framework, but we say that they cannot just fiat all of their impacts. We say they actually need a mechanism. Let's move on to their mechanism. They say that here in this room is learning about capitalism, that means that, oh, we're going to achieve all this progress. So a couple things here. First of all, countless debates have occurred on cap cake, yet last time I checked, we're still living in a capitalist society. Second, they say that just because there's like, this isn't just one debate, this is like a special debate because there's 50 people listening. It's not like this is the first time any of us are hearing about capitalism or socialism. Everyone's heard about it before, and yet we're still living in a capitalist society. Literally in like U.S. history class, European history class, world history class, everyone learns about capitalism and socialism, and yet we're still living in a capitalist society. Just learning about it doesn't actually create change. There's been so many debates over cap cake, yet we have not seen these steps of progress that they talk about. They say any miniature, any minute step towards capitalism is going to solve. Let's look at that detail of Eugene Debs. I wouldn't say that's a minute detail. That minute step, that's a pretty big step. And yet we still live in a capitalist society. We've seen big steps not even bring us anywhere near to the read anything. Near to what they talk about. Let's vote on realism. Even if you agree that like somehow socialism is good for whatever reason, they aren't able to access that impact since just us talking about it here today does not create some socialist revolution. I can talk to all you guys about the round, and you know what, if some of you guys are going to go start a socialist revolution after this round, go ahead, but countless debates have happened, and yet we haven't seen this revolution. They say that Cuba should still be shouldn't be like ignoring this debate, but we say that they actually suppress their citizens from free speech. We say the United States is better since we actually allow progress to occur. It is unfair to all affirmative debaters to vote neg just because they contest a system that the resolution does not allow us to change. A KF would be untopical and quite frankly unfair to the negation. Spillover is great, but don't vote neg just because they talk about a problem. Don't vote AF because we talk about a problem. Vote AF because we solve the problems in society. They talk about a problem and they say vote for us just because of the problem. We're not saying vote AF just because of harms. We're not saying vote AF because patent trolls are bad. We're saying vote AF because we're able to solve this problem. You should put them under the same burden. But like I mentioned, they say any minute step, just talking more about capitalism is going to bring us to that. We've seen large steps, and yet we still haven't seen it. Judges, I urge you to vote on realism. What is actually going to happen in society? And the truth is, we're not going to switch to socialism. So I can only see a vote in favor of the affirmative.